Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Explore Quantum Human Design to Manifest Your Unique Soul Purpose. Embrace your type's emotional theme as a catalyst for personal growth and an empowering new narrative. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here, getting to explore a new area for me, which I've had glimpses of and a little bit of a taste of that I find very intriguing, which is all about human design. And we're here with one of the preeminent pioneers of this work, who's really going to help illuminate how this can benefit our lives. Her name is Karen Curry Parker. She's a quantum human design pioneer and teacher in this space. And we're going to get to explore some fascinating themes with her. And I also want to let you know right up front, we're going to have a brand new program with her where you can go much deeper into this. It's called Discover Quantum Human Design. So we'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the hour. With that said, Karen, welcome to today's program.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, me too. This is going to be great. So let's begin our journey today with a little bit, first about your backstory. What brought you to human design and really dedicating your life to bringing this important work out to the world?
It's kind of a funny, synchronous, mysterious origin story for me. My story started in 1999. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had 4 kids at that time. They were little, 6 and under. And my husband at the time was really struggling. And so I sent him on a spiritual retreat to Sedona, Arizona. And he came back with this really strange looking chart. And so he showed me this chart, and it just looking at this chart hit me. It's literally like, I still struggle to find the words to describe it today. It's literally like when I saw that chart, a bell went off inside of my soul. There was just something about that chart that just stirred me. And I just sat there looking at it and crying. And I said, I have to learn everything I can about this chart. So we put our house on the market. We sold it in 2 weeks. We were living in Houston, Texas at the time. We traveled across the country with our kids in tow and landed in Sedona, Arizona, which was where the headquarters for human design was at that point in time. And as soon as we got there, my youngest son had an ear infection. So I bundled him off to the pediatrician's office, went to get a prescription, came out with this kit on my hip, and across the hallway was a door. And on that door was the human design symbol. So I thought, well, I'm going to go in here. So I, still with kid in tow, opened up the door, and there was this giant room in this small office with this tiny woman behind the desk. And she said to me, "Oh, did you come for the job?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And so that was, as I said, the headquarters for Human Design America right there. And they hired me on the spot, and I got the privilege and the honor, really, of working for quite a few years with human design, and got the opportunity to learn and study human design from the founder of the system, Ra Uru Hu, until I left the organization in 2005. So my passion for human design has always been teaching it, but also really doing something with human design that I think a lot of people aren't doing with it yet. And that is really exploring how to use it therapeutically. I'm a nurse by training. I'm one of the first life coaches trained in the world. I actually trained in life coaching before I encountered human design. I'm an energy therapist. I'm an EFT practitioner. And my question in my studies and explorations with human design was always, how do we use this? How can we use this as a coaching tool? How can we use this therapeutically? And so when I left traditional human design, I really put my head down and literally in some cases went into the lab and studied, how do we use this as a tool to really accelerate people's healing process? How do we use it as a tool to really speed up the process of realigning people with their authentic self? So I wrote my first book in 2011, and at that time, Ra, the founder of the system, passed. And I feel like since then, I've been on this beautiful journey of continuing some of the pieces of information that he shared over the course of his life and his journey with human design.
What a great backstory. And I love the synchronistic way that you landed at the organization. That's remarkable. So let's talk first on the high level for people who don't have as much familiarity with human design. What are the basic principles of how and why this system operates to give us a unique lens on our own individual psychology and soul psychology.
Well, I think as part of understanding that, we have to really look at the components of human design itself. So human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and a little bit of quantum physics mixed in. If you look at all of those beautiful ancient and modern wisdom teachings, you'll see that at the root of every one of them is some element of choice, right? With the Hindu chakra system, we're looking at the wheel of karma and how do we maybe step off of that wheel. In Judaism, when we look at the Kabbalah is all about making choices to live in a more godlike way, if you will, on the planet. The I Ching is all about how do we confront situations in our life and consciously choose a more evolved way of being. So human design is sort of this very unique synthesis of all these ancient and modern wisdoms, is really this tool that informs us and instructs us, or I think really helps us remember how do we make good, conscious, deliberate choices in our lives? And how do we consciously choose a life to create a life in such a way that it brings us the full expression, the full potential of who we are? I like to use it as a storytelling tool. Really, when we look at the chart, every layer of the chart, and it can be, human design can be ridiculously complicated if you want to make it complicated. We like it complicated, but really at the root, it's just super simple. It's just layer after layer of unique parts of your story, the human story you were born to fulfill. And encoded in that system, encoded in the story, is a pathway for you to really begin to become sovereign over your story, to consciously choose for yourself, who do I want to be? And hand in hand with that, it is this deep understanding that if you are the you creating your reality, then if you want to create a different reality, you have to know who the you is that's creating it. And that, human design is just a powerful, powerful tool to help you get a handle on, well, who am I? And what story am I telling, and how do I take back control over that story so that I'm choosing to be who I want to be and creating what I choose to create in my own life?
Great overview. And so we have our individuality, and then we also have some more universal themes that connect us and form types. And so why don't we share a little bit about types and how to understand what those types are, how we might find ourselves within them.
So, if we think, going back to the storytelling metaphor, if you're going to tell the story of your life in human design through the lens of human design at the heart of the story, each individual story, each chart is type. There are 5 types in human design. I like to think of type as sort of being the main character in your personal story. Your type is going to tell you a lot about how your energy works. It's going to tell you about your decision-making strategy. It's going to give you really deep insights into how you can understand your emotional response to life and how to interpret that in such a way that your emotions are communicating to you your next right step, what you need to do next. Type tells us a lot about relationships, our gifts, our strengths, our purpose. It's really at the heart of what human design is all about. If we distill human design down to its most simple component, your type is going to tell you a lot about who you are and how your story is really working effectively in the world. So the 5 types are the manifester, the generator, the manifesting generator, the projector, and the reflector. So when we break down those 5 types, each one of those 5 types has a very unique way of making decisions, and as I said, an emotional theme. So the first type, which is always the type that everybody thinks they are. So when I say the first type is a manifester, the manifester is actually a relatively rare type. That's a type that's about 8% of the population. Manifestors have a very unique quality, and that quality is, if you are a manifestor, you have an internal nonverbal connection to source, or an internal nonverbal creative flow. That means when you're a manifestor, you're designed to move through life doing what you feel compelled or what you feel aligned with doing. And it's often a way of doing that doesn't have words associated with it. So it's very difficult to describe it, but it's sort of like if you're moving through the kitchen and you're a manifester, you're picking up shoes and you're picking up spoons and you're putting them in the sink and you're moving towards the other part of the kitchen because you're on your way to go get the mail, to do all these other things. And it's a seamless, nonverbal flow of creativity. The challenge for the manifester is if somebody stops you, which happens a lot, especially if you have a life where there's kids and dogs and husbands or wives, if somebody stops you and says, hey, what are you doing? Or they say, hey, can I help you? It causes the manifester oftentimes to lose connection to that internal nonverbal creative flow. They literally get stopped in that flow, and they have to struggle, and oftentimes do struggle with trying to explain what they're doing or to say, hey, I don't need any help, because they're in this process of simply doing. It is the job of the manifester, by being the fullest expression of their authentic self, energetically to inspire other people to do the same. They are oftentimes called initiators. The role of the manifester is to initiate others by being the embodiment of that pure connection to source. Manifestors have to take stock of who they're going to impact before they move. That's not a natural thing for a manifestor type. They have to tell people what they're about to do, so that, not because they need permission, but so that other people can kind of move out of the way so that they can continue to follow that internal flow. The emotional theme for the manifestor type is anger. When you're a manifestor, if somebody stops your flow and asks you a question, or you have to stop and explain yourself, or they tell you for God forbid, that you can't do something, you explode. And I hate the word anger because I think it's not really the right word. It's really more like that creative flow, that force of energy that is such a part of who you are, got disrupted. And if you are a manifestor and you are finding in your life that you're experiencing a lot of anger, it's oftentimes a really important signal to cause you to really need to stop, take stock of what's going on around you. And are you in an environment where you're feeling really supported in your authentic expression? If you're getting stopped a lot, if you're feeling controlled a lot, if you're having the theme of anger ongoing in your life as a constant theme, it really is important for a manifestor to really make sure that they've placed themselves in an environment where people really understand who they are and give them enough freedom to keep following that internal creative flow that is such a part of who they are. Manifestors are about 8%, so they're a fairly rare type. The second type is called the generator. Generators are about 35% of the population. Generators are here to do meaningful work in the world. That's the job of a generator type. They're here to find meaningful work and to do that meaningful work. They're also here to learn how to learn. They're really the ultimate sort of players on the material plane. The job of the generator is to really learn how to learn. And because of that, generators have a stair-step learning curve that can oftentimes make life very interesting for generator types. So if you're a generator and you start something new in your life, a new job, or maybe you go learn to play tennis, in the beginning of your learning process, you're going to have an initial surge in mastery. So you'll start playing tennis, for example, and the first couple of weeks you'll be doing really well and you'll be hitting the ball and you got to serve. And then if you're a generator, as part of your learning process, it's very natural and normal for you to hit a plateau. In fact, all generator types, there's 2 generator types, all generator types will hit plateaus. And that's usually the biggest challenge oftentimes for the generator types, because we are trained in life that when we hit plateaus, when we feel stuck, when it feels like nothing is happening, that our best strategy in defense or as a way of coping with this energy is to push and to keep pushing. And of course, for the generator types, no matter how hard they push, when they're sitting on that plateau, nothing seems to happen. And oftentimes they feel, the emotional theme for the generator, they feel frustrated. And our response oftentimes to frustration is to quit. And so what we oftentimes see in the process of being a generator are repeated cycles of Starting something new, hitting the plateau and quitting. Starting something new, hitting the plateau and quitting. Starting something new and hitting the plateau and feeling really, really frustrated and quitting, and never really getting to that place where you feel masterful, where you really feel like I've learned what I've needed to learn. I'm really engaging in this meaningful process. What generators need to understand, especially when we start talking about manifesting and creating, is that frustration is normal. That frustration is really a symptom of momentum building. When you're a generator and you're sitting on that plateau and you're feeling frustrated, one of the things you have to learn how to do is to really assess, am I experiencing a buildup of momentum because I'm about to have a breakthrough and go up to that next level, that next surge in mastery? Or is it time for me to quit and try something new? Most generators don't know how to interpret that. And so they get into that repeated cycle of quitting, and they never get to really experience the fulfillment of their potential. They never are there when it's time for the breakthrough because they've already quit and gone on to the next thing. It is the generator's job to learn how to respond to what shows up in life. So generators look at life. When things show up, they are supposed to follow what feels good and right. And it's really interesting to note, Stephen, that oftentimes when I'm coaching people, that the most difficult and most challenging thing that we do sometimes is retrain ourselves to follow what feels good and right. We're really trained to kind of back away from that, almost as if we can't believe it. And so oftentimes when I'm working with generator types, we have to really drop back into, does this feel good and right? It does. Great. Go do it. And bypass sometimes the head stuff that happens when we start to tackle that feeling good and right. The third type in human design is called the manifesting generator. A manifesting generator is kind of a hybrid of our manifestor type and our generator type. So the manifesting generator, like a generator type, is here to find meaningful work. They're here to do work in the world that's truly meaningful and important and feels relevant to their lives. They're also here to become learners, masters of the material plane. Manifesting generators have that same stair-step learning curve as the regular generator types, but they tend to skip over some of those plateaus. So if you're a manifesting generator, you tend to go really, really fast and leapfrog over certain steps. And sometimes you might find, if you're a manifesting generator, that you actually have to go back and repeat some of those steps. It's part of your job, if you're a manifesting generator, to skip those steps. Your job in life is actually to find the fastest way to do things. It's also normal, if you're a manifesting generator, to be doing many things at once. And oftentimes when we find manifesting generators in the world, we tell them, oh, you're not focused. You're throwing too much spaghetti. You need to pick one thing and stick with it, which is actually really, really hard for a manifesting generator to do because they have a lot of extra energy that they need to burn off and spend. The manifesting generator, just like the generator, can also get frustrated on those plateaus, and they will feel that emotional theme of frustration, but they also have an internal nonverbal creative flow, just like the manifestor types. And so when they get something to respond to, when they get a signal that there's something really good they want to follow, they tend to drop into that nonverbal follow my flow energy. And just like with the manifestor, if they get interrupted in that flow, they can explode with what feels like or what looks like anger, but is really creative disruption. So manifesting generators have this emotional theme of frustration and also the anger from similar to the manifestor types. Our fourth type, which is a type that really is probably the type that will save the world, honestly. Our fourth type is called the projector type. Projectors have a job in life of managing and guiding and directing others. So it is the role of the projector, and they're about 20% of the population. It is the role of the projector basically to manage the manifestors, the generators, and the manifesting generators, which can be a hard job. I like to think of projectors as kind of being, I love sheepdogs. I have sheepdogs at home. And I like to think of projectors as being kind of like sheepdogs for humans. They are really, really sort of naturally gifted at being able to look at people and to be able to really intuitively understand what's the potential and how do I guide people towards fulfilling this potential. That is a beautiful thing to witness. My youngest daughter is a projector, and I'm always astounded at how innate her ability to see the potential and guide people towards the potential is. When she was little, we used to have to lock the car windows in our car because we'd stop at traffic lights and she would roll down the windows and yell things at people like, hey, you, why aren't you wearing a helmet? Or, oh, don't you know smoking's bad for you? Because her ability, her natural need to guide people was so pronounced that even as a small child, she was yelling at people out the window. Projectors are not here to manage everyone. If you're a projector type, you have a select group of people who you are designed to manage. Those people are the people who see you and value you. So oftentimes for the projector type, we really have to work on healing self-worth, healing your own sense of understanding of that unique, vital role that you play in the tapestry of the human story. Because when a projector really values themselves, they use their energy and their wisdom correctly, because projectors don't have the same quality of energy as some of the other types. Energy is kind of a premium for a projector. And oftentimes they're the ones who will burn out if they push too hard, too fast. A lot of healers, a lot of light workers are projector types. So the projector really has to learn how to value themselves enough to recognize that they have information that's really essential and vital and beautiful for the right people. And those right people are the people who really see the value of who they are. And so they have to learn how to sit in their own value and wait for those right people to really either invite them or recognize them into that role of being the manager or the leader or the guide. Our last and final type of those 5 is called a reflector. Reflectors are less than 1% of the population, so they're fairly rare. A reflector is here, they're kind of the canary in the coal mine. Reflectors are here to really experience and take in the energy of the community around them. They experience and sort of sample that energy of the community around them, and they embody it. They literally reflect it back. So they really are oftentimes the gauge of how well are we doing in the world. If we have a happy reflector, then you probably have somebody who's living in a happy community. If you have a reflector who maybe isn't feeling beautiful and well in the world, it might be that the environment that they're in is really creating that feeling inside of themselves. When my youngest daughter was in kindergarten, she had a reflector child in her classroom. And it was a very interesting classroom because every family in that classroom was divorced. And the kids, the 5-year-olds in that classroom a lot of them were having a really hard time with their families being separated. And this reflector girl, this little girl, every time a dad would come to drop off one of the kids and leave, this little reflector girl would run after the dad, even if it wasn't her dad, and say, "Don't leave, Daddy." And it was really like she was holding and embodying that whole pain of that whole classroom about what these kids were going through as part of the divorce, healing from the divorce of their families. So reflectors can be beautiful and have an amazing, amazing role in life. But they oftentimes also have to learn how to manage really becoming entangled energetically in their relationships. The emotional theme for the reflector is disappointment. And oftentimes they're just disappointed because they can see the potential of humanity and they know they're not quite living it. I skipped the emotional theme for the projector. I want to go back to the projector for a second. The projector emotional theme is bitterness, and it's really not one they get excited about when they see it on their charts. Bitterness, though, is really interesting because if you think about people being bitter, they're repelling, right? When we encounter somebody who's just really bitter, it's hard to be with that energy. It's hard to be around it. The bitterness of the projector is actually a really important protective energy because when a projector is feeling bitter, oftentimes what's happening is they're depleted. They're exhausted. They don't have the energy to manage and guide anyone. They're not available for invitations and recognition. And so bitterness, even though it's repelling, is actually a signal that they need to rest, that they need to restore their energy because they're not available. And so oftentimes, especially if we have projector loved ones and they start to feel bitter and feel like it's not fair and they can't do things like in the same way that other people do, that we support them in recognizing that that bitterness is a symptom that they need to rest and renew and recharge their batteries so they can come back out and manage and guide people again.
What a great overview. I mean, you really clearly have mastered this system. And so one thing I don't think we clarified is when you go through all those, are we looking for what we resonate with? How do we slot ourselves into one of those?
That's a great question, because part of why I like to talk about the emotional themes as opposed to just describing each type is because, as I said in the beginning, we all tend to think we're manifestors, right? We're all, even oftentimes before we're born, we're conditioned, we're trained, we're entrained, and we're entrained by our families, we're entrained by the cultural narrative, we're entrained by the rules of success that we grew up with. And a lot of the times we think that we are here to follow our own inner creative flow and go push and do whatever we want, and that we got to set our hat and manifest our destiny. And really, that description of the different types isn't necessary, even if we resonate with it, even if we relate to it, it's not always your type. Because oftentimes we're so disconnected from the main character in our story and the truth of the description of the main character in our story, that we can't see ourselves in this overview of these 5 types. But when we start to look at the emotional themes for the types, anger for the manifester, frustration for the generator, anger and frustration for the manifesting generator, bitterness for the projector, disappointment for the reflector, people will oftentimes find themselves more in the correct emotional theme for their type than they will in the description for their type. So I always like to include that piece because people are often so surprised by their type. There 8% of the people are manifestors, but I'll say 92% of people will say, oh yeah, I'm a manifestor. And then of course our manifestors will say, oh, I'm not a manifestor. So, and again, a lot of that is just undoing some of our own cultural narrative and our own entrainment in stories that we tell about ourselves that are not necessarily true.
It sounds like this system is also more intrinsically team oriented or like collaboration oriented because of the way the different types are working with each other, or like you're talking about the projectors managing the efforts of others. And so it seems like it's more about a system of working within relational fields almost.
That's a really good insight. I mean, I certainly would say that, human design helps us understand the different pieces of the human puzzle. And we all have a unique piece in that human story. And so certainly every type definitely has the potential to impact the whole around us. There are certainly elements in every chart. I mean, the chart is a synthesis of a whole lot of archetypes. And certainly there are people who are more by design inclined to follow their own conviction, their own direction, do their own thing. There are certainly some people who by design are less collaborative, but ultimately, even if you're a less collaborative type by design, your very story, who you are, how you embody it, how you be it, is obviously, it's an important part of you manifesting your own or really expressing your own potential. But there's no way that your individual story isn't a part of the collective story, isn't part of all of who we are. And that's an interesting observation. I don't think that's an observation that I see people come up with in the beginning, but certainly I would say that, and this is probably why I personally am so passionate about human design, it's certainly the part of the human design story that I think is so vital at this time on the planet. When you really discover who you are and you learn to love yourself and accept yourself, warts and all, when you learn to value yourself and really start living from that deep self-love, self-worth, the capacity that has to heal the world, is phenomenal. Because if you're standing in this place where you recognize, I play a unique and vital and irreplaceable role in the cosmic plan. There's never been anybody like me before. There's never going to be anybody like me again. I'm a once in a lifetime cosmic event. And you live in that space. All of a sudden you are enough. All of a sudden you have enough. And all of a sudden you're not in competition with anyone else anymore because you're a once in a lifetime cosmic event. Who are you competing with? Right. And so now your point of creation becomes pure self-expression. And I think we're afraid of that because I think sometimes we think, oh, that's selfish, but it's not. I think what human design shows us is it's inherently unselfish. It's inherently, as you said, integral in the story of being a human.
I'd love for you to share a little more about how, once you understand your type and the emotional theme that goes with it, how does that then inform how you approach life and make decisions and align with goals?
Mm-hmm. So each type has a very different way of making a decision. So the manifestors, after they really learn about who they are and how they operate, part of their journey, if you will, in the beginning with their human design, is to learn how to reconnect with that internal signal that they have that lets them know, oh, my flow is clear. I know what I need to do. And all that inner alignment in my body and my spirit has now happened. And now is the right timing for me to follow my flow. So manifestors have a little bit of a trickier time in learning how to make decisions because oftentimes they really have to deeply reconnect with the wisdom of the body, because that oftentimes really becomes where their signal for right timing and right action happens. For the generator types, that's both the generator and the manifesting generator. They have an internal sort of gut level response. We call this the sacral response in human design. And that gut level response starts first by we have to oftentimes turn it back on. It's like a car that's been sitting in a backyard for a while. You have to find the key and put it in there and get that motor turned back on. And once that motor gets turned back on, it gives the generator types a lot of insight and wisdom about what's the next right step, how to make a good decision. That motor actually gets turned on by sound. And it's sound that bypasses thinking, because oftentimes that's where we get stuck. We start thinking and figuring out and getting under all this pressure to have the right answer. When for the generator types, the answers really aren't up here. They're really more in this gut level response. So the sounds that the generator types make are this. I don't know if you're raised in the South, Stephen, but I was raised in the South. I had to relearn these sounds because I was taught not to make these sounds, right? Those two sounds are uh-huh and uh-uh. Not yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, right? Uh-huh, uh-uh. And so the generators start in their process of healing and reconnecting with that gut level compass with learning how to make sounds again in response to things. So you can ask generators yes or no questions, and they can respond with uh-huh, uh-uh, whatever is correct for them. And by starting to make those sounds, they actually reawaken this gut level compass, if you will, about what's right and what feels right. And eventually it becomes sort of this whole body like response. Something beautiful will show up and you know, I'm going to go follow this thing. It's fun to watch I have two grandkids. They're both generator types, and we play the game all the time because I'm trying to keep that connection to that sacral sound turned on with them. The projectors, their decision-making strategy is literally to wait for people to recognize and invite them. And that part of the bitterness sometimes, especially when you first learn human design about being a projector, comes from this sense of feeling like, how am I supposed to create anything if I'm dependent on other people to invite me or to recognize me? And part of what we oftentimes have to retrain the projectors to do is to remember that we really actually create on an energetic level, not just by moving the mud on the material world. And that the projector will call in, literally energetically draw in people who are ready to give them the right invitation when they, A, have the energy, and B, when they value themselves, so that they're not taking invitations that aren't worthy of them. And so oftentimes when we work with retraining the projector, it's harder for the projector because they really don't have any backup energy for pushing the way some of the other types can. And so they really have to learn to trust that energy creates, that their own self-worth, their own sense of their own value actually creates a force field of energy that calls the right people in. And oftentimes that doesn't happen first until the projector heals their energy. I do find that when I do readings for projectors in the beginning, usually they are by far the most physically burned out and exhausted. And we oftentimes have to start first by healing that exhaustion, and hand in hand with that, healing that sense of value. and remembering, helping them each remember that they have something precious that is valuable and important for the planet. Our reflectors have a very different decision-making strategy. The reflectors have to really take their time because they experience so much energy from so many people at such a deep, visceral level. It's hard for them sometimes to tease out their own direction. And so reflectors, projectors need this too, but reflectors especially really need, first of all, a good sounding board. They have to talk sometimes to talk through their decision-making process because they have to feel as they talk, like, is this mine or is this the people around me? And then they oftentimes have to wait, at least for the big decisions, to wait like at least a full cycle of a moon, sometimes more. That, you know, they need 30 days or more sometimes to really talk and feel and shift and sense how their energy changes over time before they can really land on a good, solid decision. So just understanding those little pieces, like for the manifester, learning how to cue in to that inner alignment with right timing. For the generator types, learning to really trust that visceral body response. For the projectors, learning to wait for that recognition and attention. And for the reflectors, really learning to take that time. Just those little pieces can really shift how you make choices. And oftentimes built into that is a lot of waiting. And that's oftentimes the other part that people really push against with human design, because we don't like to wait, right? We're not comfortable sometimes with waiting because we think we're not doing anything. And then when we're not doing something, you know, we're afraid we're going to get judged as being lazy, or we're going to miss an opportunity, or nothing's going to show up. And so it's sort of built into traditional human design that there is waiting. And I like to think of it as it's really a beautiful gift, honestly, from the universe. The whole process of learning to wait and really assess how to decide correctly. That waiting part is almost like, I think every time we meet human design, it's almost like human design itself demands of us that we take a pause, that we hit the pause button and we recalibrate. You know, I think we have, I believe, in fact, we have science that shows that we have inside of us this deep well of knowing, this connection to not only the wisdom of our heart, but to our intuition, to our instinct, to the cadence of the voice of source and our souls whispering to us. And when we are born into this human story, a lot of times we forget what that sounds like. And the waiting part and the recalibrating and relearning to make decisions in a way that's aligned with how you're energetically hardwired really is a prescription for healing. And in fact, you know, in the story of traditional human design and Ra Uru Hu, the founder of the system, you know, he always said that the human design system was not complete. The way human design is taught, the traditional human design language, is all about getting people to slow down, to stop, to become more connected to themselves, to become more deliberate, and to really remember what is their truth, what does each person's individual truth sound and feel like inside their body. And that process of remembering is really a process oftentimes of disentangling ourselves from our family narrative, our cultural narrative, sometimes, you know, the narrative we construct in response to our lived experiences. And, you know, when we don't stop and slow down, sometimes, you know, we just keep pushing and trying to figure out and thinking and, you know, living out this story of these are the things we have to do to be successful. These are the things we have to do to be abundant. When we don't stop and connect and feel and sense and realign ourselves with, well, what is my truth here? What's my trajectory here? We oftentimes miss the boat. And, you know, ultimately that creates a lot of pain. It creates a disruption in our connection to our abundance. It creates, you know, disruptions in our relationships. It disrupts our health and wellness. I just finished my dissertation. And part of what I looked at in the research that I did for my dissertation is the relationship between how you perceive events and your immune response, and how when you rewrite your perception of those events to make your understanding of what happened to you more authentic and more empowering, that even if you don't believe the story you rewrite, it starts to shift your immune response in a positive direction. That our relationship with our bodies and our health and wellness are impacted when we don't live true to that inner voice, that cadence of the inner voice. Even our ability to relax and trust in source and have faith, even that is impacted if we don't think we are individually each enough and unique and vital parts of the cosmic plan.
Well, there's definitely some fascinating rewiring of some of our cultural belief systems in there, which has been so hyper fixated on the doing and the achievement, that this alignment and really thinking of waiting in a whole different way is that process of realigning with our own inner truth. Really cool stuff. So I know there's so much we can go into this, but I know you wanted to lead us in a practice that's really focusing on the G Center to give us a more embodied experience of what you're talking about. And I think now would be a great time for that.
Absolutely. Are you okay if I share a slide?
Sure.
So when you look at this chart, what you'll see in the center of this chart is a heart. That heart is part of what's called the G Center. So if you look at your chart, you'll see that there are 9 different geometric shapes on that chart. Each one of those shapes correlates to what's called a center in human design. So in human design, each center correlates loosely to the 7 chakras from the Hindu chakra system. The heart in the middle, which sometimes, depending on where you may have run your chart, you might see it as a diamond, or you might see it as a heart. That G Center, that center, correlates to the heart chakra. There are actually 2 centers in human design that correlate to the heart chakra. We know from science that the heart actually is an intelligence, contains an intelligence, all of it on its own, that when you move your heart consciously and deliberately into a state of coherence, meaning when your heart is aligned with your mind and your body and your spirit, when your heart lives in a state of coherence, you're actually activating a higher state of wellness and well-being, and you're actually more creative. You can actually see more creative possibilities and more options for yourself. So being in a state of heart coherence, which is also being in alignment with literally the heart of who you are, because in human design, your identity, the story you tell about who you are, lives in that heart center. So when you are in a state of coherence, when you're aligned with who you are, you're more creative. In human design, when you look at this chart, you'll see that in that center, there are little numbers around it. So it's kind of like a clock. If you follow that heart, there are little numbers all around it. There are 64 numbers on the human design chart. Those 64 numbers correlate to the 64 hexagrams from the Chinese I Ching. The numbers are basically codes. They represent core archetypes in the human story. And the numbers on the heart center, in the G Center, actually represent codes that influence how we can condition ourselves and train ourselves into a state of coherence, and in conjunction with that, actually call in a higher state, a higher magnetic state of attraction. So in human design, we learn that the magnetic resonance field of the heart actually lives in that G Center. It is regulated by what we call in human design the magnetic monopole, which is the source of the law of attraction. So what you attract into your life is deeply influenced by the core archetypes that reside in the G Center. This is true for everyone, so it's not dependent on your unique chart. This is actually, part of the human story, if you will. And so if we go around the gates of the G Center, starting at the left, on the left-hand side, we see the gate 10. The gate 10 is the gate of self-love. So we attract into our life in alignment with how much love we have for ourselves. So sometimes when we feel blocked or stuck in manifesting, we're blocked or stuck because we struggle with our own self-love. And sometimes we have to heal self-love in order to shift our point of attraction. If you continue to go around to the upper left-hand side, that gate there, the gate 7, says that you are designed to be powerful. That's part of your identity. And so when we feel powerless, or we feel like we don't have influence or control over aspects of our life, it can actually block or influence what we create in our lives. The gate 1, which is the gate at the top in the middle, says that You are designed to be relentlessly authentic, that you are designed to be the full expression of the person you were born to be. So when we look at the law of attraction and manifesting, we know that you will manifest better, if you will. You'll speed up the manifesting process if you're being true to yourself. The gate 13, the next gate over, tells us that we attract in alignment with the story we tell about who we are. So when we are still holding on to old stories of the past and we're letting them have power or control over us, it influences what we create. When we forgive, meaning not condoning what may have happened to you, but when we allow ourselves to let go of that old story and stop having that story define us, then we can increase and shift our point of attraction and increase our abundance in our life. The gate 25, the next gate down, tells us that when we live in alignment with our higher purpose, our soul purpose, that we actually can increase what we attract and what we experience in our lives. The gate 46, we're now at the bottom of the heart center. The gate 46 says that you will attract what you have the energy for, what you feel vital, what you have the vitality for. So the gate 46 invites us to look, as part of our creative process, at our physical energy. How much energy do you have for what you're intending? The gate 2 is all about allowing. So the gate 2 on the heart center says you will attract, or you will allow yourself to receive to the degree to which you believe you can. Oftentimes that distills down to us asking ourselves, how much good am I willing to allow myself to receive? On the next gate over, the last one, the gate 15 says we're designed to share who we are and what we have in a compassionate way with each other. And so the more we are intending to use our blessings to expand upon the blessings of others, actually the more we amplify what we can receive in life. So what I like to do with you all right now is just take you on a very short journey into your heart. And I'm going to teach you, I'm going to actually give you a set of phrases. These phrases that I'm going to give you are actually phrases that we know, because I work a lot in sound labs and do a lot of research on the impact of sound and frequencies on the body. These phrases that I'm going to give you are actually phrases that if you repeat them, actually will kick you into a state of heart coherence, a place where you are more aligned with the intelligence of your heart and amplifying your wellness and your creativity. So I want you just to take a minute and literally put your hand over your heart and just rest there for a minute and see if you can't feel your heart beating against the palm of your hand. And just take a minute, just take a nice long deep breath in and take a longer breath out. And just consciously and deliberately slow down your breathing. And just feel your heart. I find that sometimes it's fun and helps connect with the heart. If you imagine, especially if you're a person who thinks a lot, imagine, if you will, for a minute, you can close your eyes and do this, that you are literally walking down a staircase from your brain, from your mind, a nice spiral staircase down from your brain into the center of your heart. So if that helps you in terms of visualizing, just imagine for a moment that you're walking down from your mind, down this nice, beautiful spiral staircase into the chambers of your beautiful, pink, warm, loving heart. And just let yourself enjoy the embrace of your heart around you and just feel that energy of your heart surround you for a moment. And when you're ready, I'm going to give you a series of phrases to repeat after me. And you can later on, maybe if you re-listen to this, you can write these down, put them in your bathroom, put them on your refrigerator. Because if you repeat these phrases, even if you don't do the breathing part in the beginning, just repeating these phrases brings you back into your heart, into that heart center, and help you really quickly recalibrate yourself towards that natural alignment that is part of your natural creativity and abundance. So let's take a nice other deep breath together. And then just repeat after me. I am love. I decide. I choose. I am. I forgive. I serve. I am vital. I receive. I am supported. I am compassionate. And just take a moment and let that settle in. And when you're ready, just take one other nice, long, deep breath. Oh, and let it out. You can bring your awareness back to this call, back to this transmission.
Well, Karen, thank you for that. I particularly appreciate the declarative nature of those phrases, to really own without ambivalence the anchoring of each of those phrases in our bodies and in our hearts. So it's really quite powerful and beautiful.
Thank you.
So do you then extend that work to work with all the different centers? So there's a similar process working with the different centers?
Absolutely. So, really, I think what's the beauty of human design, and, this is actually what I love to teach because it amplifies the manifesting process, is each one of those centers has specific archetypal codes associated with them. And when you really are consciously working with elevating your expression and your experience of those codes, it starts to shift your creative power. It literally shifts your frequency, your energetic frequency, so that you're more receptive, you're calling in more, you're literally more attractive, you're more influential because you're creating and living physically and physiologically and spiritually from this high resonant place.
So there's first kind of a process of identifying ourselves and anchoring a sort of acceptance and a cherishing really of the qualities. And then you're sort of with the further going with the phrases and these codes to then anchor it in even further, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I would say in conjunction with that, everybody has a unique chart. So everybody's chart basically is a soul curriculum. It's going to tell you a lot about which one of those archetypes are you specifically designed to explore over the course of your lifetime? What themes are you going to be revisiting every time you go through a maturing cycle, every time you go through a disruptive cycle, every time you have a growth opportunity? Your chart's going to really tell you a lot about what you need to personally work with and, thematically and archetypically in order to fulfill your potential and to really serve your purpose in the world.
Well, I think this is a great moment to turn our attention to your upcoming program, because it's clear there's just layers and layers of depth in this system, and there's so much to be explored and manifested and integrated, and including the waiting portion you talked about before. So let's focus on that now. So the program that Karen is going to be teaching is called Discover Quantum Human Design. Gain powerful self-awareness, live your true life purpose, and create a new empowering life narrative. You can find it laid out in detail at the URL quantumhdcourse.com, quantumhdcourse.com. It's a 7-week program, and there's no prerequisites. So you don't have to have any knowledge or mastery of this system. It really is going to give you the foundational building blocks. And if you do have knowledge, it's going to take you to the next level. So Karen, I'd love for you to share a bit about the overview of the program and the bigger why of taking it. How do people's life shift as a result of really taking in this information and integrating it? And then I'll read out the module titles you give as a preview of what's coming in each.
Absolutely. So, I really like to invite people to imagine for a moment that you're telling a story about yourself that is really aligned with the full potential of being a human being, abundant, being connected, being loving, being powerful. When people rewrite their personal narrative to include those key pieces, everything in their life shifts. If you're struggling with money, for example, oftentimes I find that when we start to break down the stories around money, the stories people tell about money, is that at the heart of the money story is usually the theme of self-worth, that there's something in your story about your own value and your ability to be supported if you're not doing all the things maybe you should be doing or you were trained to do. So when I get people to rewrite that story, they shift the relationship with money. I work a lot with the power of story and metaphor. And when people rewrite that story, when they deliberately and consciously rewrite their story, they start to shift their relationship with everything. You start telling a better story about yourself. If you start telling a story where you say, I'm a powerful person, and my unique way of creating is by connecting directly to the quantum pulse, and I trust my inner alignment with source, and I know what that sounds like, and I know what that feels like. And even if I never learned how to activate that, I now know how to activate that. That's my superpower. And I can use that deep inner connection to source that's so innate in my own natural hardwiring to really dial in and sense and feel what's my next right step and the fulfillment of my destiny, so that I can do what I came here to do and be what I came here to be. That central focus in creating that fulfillment comes first from consciously and deliberately looking at your story, figuring out how did you get the story that you have right now, and most importantly, rewriting it.
Module 1 is called Embrace Your Energetic Blueprint and Harness Quantum Human Design for Transformative Action and Personal Growth.
In lesson 1, we start first with some really basic overviews on how do we actually manifest, because we have like little things we've learned and studied. We say your thoughts create your reality, but a lot of times we don't have enough information to know what does that really mean. Do your thoughts really create your reality? I'm going to show you in lesson 1 that yes, your thoughts create your reality, but that's just a tiny part of the equation. That really what's creating your reality is your story. And I'm actually going to show people, break down for people the quantum mechanics, not real quantum mechanics, but the quantum mechanics of manifesting and how that works, and why storytelling and the story you tell is literally a filter from which you choose options out of the quantum field. And if you don't like the options you're manifesting, you have to shift that story. We'll start first with looking at the story of your type. And we're going to actually be using, in this whole program, we're going to be using literally storytelling. So even though there's a lot of data and it can be really heady, we're always going to ground it in every lesson with a storytelling exercise, a really beautiful embodiment exercise that will help you look at where am I living out the shadow elements of my type in lesson 1, and what is the potential for my type, and how am I going to bridge the gap between where I am right now and how can I, in being able to fulfill this higher expression, this main character in my story, my type. So we start with that first. And then, of course, we move on through in the other lessons, we kind of deepen the adventures that your type is having in your story.
Module 2, explore strategies to overcome shadow themes and harness insights into your learning style, bonding strategy, and relationships.
So everybody's human design has what's called a profile. There are 12 profiles in the human design system. Your profile basically represents what you need to feel stable and grounded. It tells you a lot about how you learn. So for example, some of us learn through experimentation and exploration. And if you ever had that exploring part of yourself shut down, it may have actually impeded your ability to learn and to become wise. Many of the profile will tell you not only about how you learn and what you need to feel stable and to be grounded. It also tells us a lot about how we form relationships, what we're attracted to, how we behave in relationships. And ultimately, it also refines in our storytelling process characteristics of our main character. So we have a main character, our type. Profile tells us more about what does this character need and what is this character, how's this character fulfilling this unique role that they have in the world. And again, we approach this through storytelling. So we look at the shadow, like, for example, there's what's called a line 1 in a profile. If you have a line 1 in your profile, the shadow is a fear of the unknown. And so we reframe that fear of the unknown through storytelling and creative exercises to really look at recognizing that if you have a 1 in your profile, you need a lot of information to feel stable. And that's actually part of the gift that you bring to others. You know things because you've studied and you've learned and you've researched. And that's part of the gift that your main character brings to the world as part of your purpose.
Module 3, take a deep dive into your energy centers to activate optimal expression of your life's truest purpose.
So there are 9 energy centers, as we talked about a little bit earlier in human design. Over the course of the next couple of lessons, we're going to break down the different centers and go deep into the archetypal themes of each of those centers so that you can really look at how does your unique chart and how your chart is configured, how do you operate in the world? Here's a really cool thing about centers. The way your centers are configured in your unique chart is not only going to tell you a lot about who you are, it actually tells you a lot about who you're not. Because our centers are going to tell us if we're either radiating energy out, if we're here broadcasting that energy, or depending on how it's configured, if we're receiving that energy from others. Oftentimes, if we're receiving that energy from others, we can mistakenly identify with it or easily actually get our own energy field hijacked, if you will. And so in order to sort of process and release other people's energies inside of us, we have to really look at how we're configured and know how to optimize our own configuration. So in this particular course, we're going to look at what's called the head center, the ajna, and the throat center, which are really important centers when it comes to thinking, processing, and figuring things out. Here's the really exciting piece that I love to talk about when we get to the centers part. We're not only going to do storytelling with the centers. In conjunction with the storytelling, we actually are going to be using sound frequencies to align the energies in your centers. So each center, because as I said, it correlates to a chakra, each center has its own frequency. And what we've done over the past year is we went into the lab, if you will. We went into the story lab and the sound lab, and we created customized frequency tones for each one of those 9 centers. These tones, and you're going to get access to these recordings as part of this program. These recordings are actually binaural recordings. So you usually use them with bone conducting headphones or even with, any kind of noise canceling headphones. You will hear them throughout. It's really like you get a brain massage. You'll hear them throughout your brain. They are theta wave tones. So they're really great tones for waking up, for activating focus and attention. And you can use these tones, and I'll walk you through in the homework for these lessons, how to actually synchronize your centers with these frequencies. And you do it very consciously and deliberately as part of really realigning your energy back to its normal, natural, healthy, creative state.
Cool. Module 4, calibrate your G, will, and emotional solar plexus centers to attune to your inner harmony.
So just like we did in the last lesson, we focused on 3 centers. In this lesson, we'll focus on these 3 centers. And again, same thing, we'll look at the archetypal themes, the shadows, the highest elements. And of course, again, at the end of this lesson, you're going to get access to the 3 sound frequencies so that you can do the homework to actually synchronize your centers with these frequencies.
Module 5, optimize your root, spleen, and sacral centers to amplify your life force and align your spirituality with your human experience.
Beautiful. Yeah. So this lesson, that's the centers lesson. Same thing. We're going to be going through the archetypal themes of those 3 centers, looking at, again, how is it configured in your personal chart? How do you optimize those energies? And again, synchronizing in your homework, synchronizing those centers with the sound frequencies and specific exercises that you'll be doing to really activate the full potential of those centers in your chart.
Module 6, decode your gates for a personalized path to your quantum life purpose.
This is my favorite one. So there are 64 sub-archetypal themes in the chart called gates. It's fancy words for gates, but you're actually going to get a handout with all the different gate themes, and you're going to learn how to look at which gates are actually highlighted and activated in your personal soul curriculum, your chart. And I'm going to walk you through a process where you're going to decode your life purpose in the chart based on the gates that are highlighted in your chart. This is a huge, huge, super fun part where we really kind of get to look at what I like to call the sacred flaw in our story, where our hero's journey leads us and how we can really work with that flaw, really overcome it and start to turn it into a superpower and a strength and the gift and the blessing of our ability to really amplify and put our life purpose out into the world through action.
And finally, module 7, quantum life navigation. Seamlessly integrate all facets of your quantum human design into a comprehensive roadmap for life.
So we've looked at the main character, your type. We've looked at the qualities of your character, the profile. We've looked at how your energy operates. We've looked at the sacred flaw through the lens of the gates. Now you have all the components of a really beautiful story. And so literally in this last lesson, we weave all of that together through a very conscious, deliberate storytelling process so that you're actually going to emerge. You're going to get this kind of Mad Libs form that you can fill out. You're going to emerge with basically a life purpose manifesto that's going to be a way for you to really tell yourself consciously and deliberately the true story of who you really are so that you start making choices and start creating in your life in alignment with the person you were born to be. And that's going to, of course, again, improve your relationship with your money, with others, with your body, with spirituality. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch people really put this story into action.
What's an amazing program. There's so many different dimensions you're going to be teaching. Again, there's more detail at quantumhdcourse.com. So I'll share a little bit more about it. So not only do you get the 7 90-minute live sessions with Karen, which are truly going to be packed with valuable information, you'll have time to ask your questions directly. You'll get recordings of each session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises for home, Facebook community to support you and develop a community around this work, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses that are designed to enhance your journey as well. There's a video teaching with 2 PDF companions. It's called the Quantum Human Masterclass. Karen, you want to share a little bit about that?
So embedded into human design is a prediction, if you will, a prophecy of the future. And really, we're actually right knee deep in it. We're in the shift, right? And so this prophecy really says that we're moving away from the programming of our ancestral lineage and redefining how we create as human beings. And so the quantum human walks you through this prophecy and how the chart itself is actually in a state of flux. It's changing. Our hardwiring is changing, and what that actually means for us and what it means for the future of the world. And really, what unique role do you play? Because I think everybody who's drawn to this material is really here deliberately and intentionally because they all have a purpose and a part in this mission of evolving humanity. So we'll be looking at what's your unique role in this evolution of humanity.
What a cool bonus. That sounds amazing. And that's just one of the bonuses. There's also a PDF workbook, Quantum Human Design workbook from Karen. And there's a whole 10-part video course that you get as a special bonus when you sign up right away. And I think this one's particularly significant. It's called Quantum Money, Create Aligned Wealth. It includes the 10-part video course plus PDF handouts. Super generous, Karen, that you're making this available for anybody who signs up right away by midnight tonight Pacific time. So I want to share a little bit about that 10-part video course on quantum money.
Absolutely. So we are all designed to be abundant. And oftentimes that translates to money. And in the Quantum Money course, I'm going to teach you how to actually find the curriculum in your chart about you and money. We're going to look at where does wealth live in your chart? How do you activate your unique path to creating wealth and money in the chart? We're going to look at the shadow side of abundance and money and how you can really take back sovereignty over any limiting stories you might have about yourself and money, and how to really use your chart so that you're learning how to create money and wealth in a way that keeps you sustainable, which is huge because oftentimes in that pursuit of money, we're burning out or we're compromising on our integrity. So we're really going to rewrite the story so that you're creating wealth from a place of alignment, a place of integrity, a place of joy where you're being the embodiment of your wealth. And from that beingness, you're actually shifting and changing your relationship with how you work and how you create money.
Well, it's an amazing extra bonus that folks get when they sign up right away. So it's a great reason to tune in now. And if you're getting the sense to move forward, then you get that extra bonus on quantum money, which is, worth the value in and of itself. So we've kept the investment for this program very accessible, given all the rich, abundant teachings and practices. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start September 5th and run Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make those live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And I also encourage you to go through the page and really check out some of the testimonials about Karen's work and this system as a whole. Just people rave about the value and how it's transformed their lives. So you can see more of those quotes at quantumhdcourse.com, and you're going to get that special bonus if you sign up by midnight tonight, the Quantum Money Create Aligned Wealth. So Karen, what a fascinating hour. You are brilliant and really fascinating to listen to. So thank you for sharing so much with us today. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share for folks who are considering diving into the full program with you?
I actually want to just share a metaphor, because I think it helps us really visualize why your life is so important, not only for yourself and your loved ones, but for the planet. I have 8 kids and I have 2 grandkids, and we have a lot of dogs. Our house is always pretty chaotic. And, if we do puzzles in our house, it's only a matter of minutes before a puzzle piece goes missing, or some very frustrated child is ripping off the little bits and trying to jam it somewhere where it doesn't go. And, a puzzle is really only as beautiful as the sum total of its pieces. And when we, if humanity is a puzzle and we're each a piece of that puzzle, if we're trying to jam ourselves into a place where we don't fit, or we're literally tearing off parts of ourselves, trying to make ourselves blend into some part of the puzzle where we don't really belong, not only does that impact you, your ability to create wealth, your ability to create wellness, your ability to have good relationships, your ability to be, aligned with your purpose and living your purpose in the world in a meaningful and rich way. Even your connection with source gets disrupted. When you find your right place in the puzzle, when you find that once in a lifetime cosmic event space for yourself, where you are fulfilling your unique and vital and irreplaceable role in the puzzle, not only does your life get better, not only does everything about your experience of your story get better, you actually add to the beauty of the puzzle. And I do believe at this crucial time on the planet, that as we are in the midst of this shift, that the most important thing that we can each do individually is first and foremost become the fulfillment of the story that we were born to live. We are not our story. We're actually each other's story. And the more we live our story, the more we impact the people around us, and the more we fulfill the potential of not only our own story, but literally the story of humanity. So, however you get to, human design is hopefully a really great path for you, but however you get to your right place, your fulfillment of that place in the puzzle, do it, and do it now, because the faster we do it, I think the faster we will all heal, and the faster we'll find the elegant solutions to the challenges facing humanity today.
Really powerful and very wise messages. Thank you, Karen, for all you've synthesized and all you're offering. And for all you who joined us, thank you for joining. And if you want to go further into this powerful system, you are warmly welcome to, and you can do so at quantumhdcourse.com, and you can get that full quantum money program if you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you so much, Karen. Many blessings.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me.